Hello everybody and welcome back. If you have missed our introduction to Modern Horizons 3, you guys should check that video out. It is the most important. It tells you everything you need to know about different mechanics and draftable archetypes. But in today's video, we are going to be going over every single card that is white and giving you guys a rating between 1 and 10. We've mixed it up. We need a wider range because 1 to 5 just wasn't cutting it anymore. So we are going to be doing 1 to 10 from here on out. We've got Yanks on the call. Welcome back, Yanks.
Good to be back.
Are you excited to rate some Modern Horizons cards?
Yeah, these sets are always kind of, I don't know if wacky's not the right word. It's not like an unset, but it's just, they're always kind of all over the place. Power level's relatively high, usually, so they can be fun to talk about.
Some notes to keep in mind here is the pre-release in store will be on June 7th. It will release on Arena on the 11th and in stores on the 14th. So from the date that these are released, you still have like 2 weeks before official release. So make sure you guys check out the other set reviews. All right, so are we ready to jump into white, Yanks?
Yep, let's head right on in.
All right, Airy Auxiliary, 4 mana for a 3/3 flying bird soldier with, when it enters the battlefield, support 2. This is a returning mechanic where you put a +1/+1 counter for up to 2 target creatures, which is the number of support. So support X, that number of creatures can get a +1/+1 counter on it. And it says other, which is important, so it can't put it on itself. So this is not a 4/4 at its base. What set were we seeing support in before?
Support first showed up in Oath of the Gatewatch. And I think the biggest thing to note with support, you already got one of them, which is that it says other.
We saw
that
it
it's support
recently, didn't we?
Oh, have we seen it again? I know that's where it originated, was Oath of the Gatewatch.
Was it in, I could have swore I saw it very recently on
So
Modern...
It has also shown up in New Capenna Commander cards,
I could have...
but not in the main set.
Maybe it was just like enters plus counters.
As well as Battle Bond.
Okay. So it was just not support, but it was a similar mechanic. I thought it was in like the last Modern Horizons, Modern Masters, something. I'm making it up. Ignore me. It's too early in the video for me to just be confused about shit, so...
The other kind of key with support is that even though you're getting it's support 2, which is 2 counters, you can't put them both on the same creature.
Yes.
Unlike things like Bolster, for example, which was another similar mechanic.
So whatever support X, that is the number of creatures in which you can put a +1/+1 counter. So it really benefits you for going wide. If you don't have a super creature heavy deck, then this tends to be a pretty overcosted creature at its face if you don't have like 2/3 drops, right? Rating wise, it's going to be weird. This is our first time going out of 10. So let me...
I know, I have no idea where our baselines are.
Let me percolate here. I feel like... Is like 5 2?
Probably 5 should be like our old 2, yeah.
So 5 is like where you will play it if you have to. If like you're a little short on permanents, you like switched colors in pack 2.5, and you're like running a little behind here. This is, I think, a little bit better than that in the average deck, and I think it'll be good in most white decks, right? Because white tends to be pretty creature heavy. So I'm gonna say but this is a 6.
Yeah, I think I like this as a 6. I like the scale too for anybody that's a soccer fan. That's the scale places use when they give player ratings, like websites and articles. Is a 6 is kind of like your average performance. Your 5 is, yeah, it was passable, but 6 is, you kind of had an okay game, and that's kind of what I think this would be.
All right, perfect. Yeah, we probably should have thought about what we were thinking about with that 1 through 10 before actually starting the episode, but here we are. Johnny Fells the Goldshire, 5 mana for a saga, and then lore 1, chapter 1, exile target creature and opponent controls with power 3 or greater. Chapter 2, create a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token. Then put a vigilance counter on a creature you control. Vigilance counter, interesting. And then target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. Chapter 3 is the least exciting, so it's interesting that you're getting most of your value in the front 2. Normally it makes you wait, so I think that's really neat. This seems fine.
Yeah, if you're building a saga kind of as like a removal spell, I feel like you kind of need to put it up front, which is nice. Like a
Yeah.
2-turn delay removal spell is pretty rough,
Yeah.
especially at 5 mana. This card's fine. I do think all the WoW fans in the audience will appreciate you saying this was Fel's the Goldshire instead of Godsire.
Oh. Give me candle. My bad. I suck at words, man. I can't help it. Let's see. Rating wise, gosh, our new scale, it hurts my brain. I still
I
want
think
more
I'm
room.
gonna.
I feel like I'm putting everything in like 5 and 6 still seems like high.
So like to me, I'm thinking like if a 6 was like our 2.5 probably last time, like if you're just going up, now full points are half points, right? So I kind of like, or half points. What used to be half points are now full points. So this is
7?
like a 7. It's like a 3 from our old scale. It's okay removal, a little expensive, but you do get a little more
Yeah.
if it sticks around. Although a turn 6 or 7 2/1 isn't that exciting.
Yeah. If you guys are new to our set reviews, this is our first time doing the 1 to 10, and that's because 1 to 5 became too narrow because we used to have a lot more like draft chaff. A lot of cards just weren't playable. But I feel like the number of cards that are not good and limited have decreased drastically. And everything was between 3 and 5. Like everything was playable. So there was no ones and twos. We kind of just cut that out. So now we are doing a little bit trying to extend that scale and get some more range so that way not all threes are created equal, right? Now we can have some play between 5, 6, 7 with cards that would have all been like 3-ish, high 3, low 3, so on. Okay, so we agree on a 7.
Yep.
All right, Argent Deus, 2 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield with 2 oil counters, whenever 2 or more creatures attack, put an oil counter on it, and then you can tap it, pay 2, remove 2 oil counters, exile another target non-land permanent. Its controller draws 2 cards. Interesting. So you can use it on big dragons, and like it sucks that they're getting 2 cards, but you can also use it to sack your little mites and pests or whatever type cards, your creatures you don't need to draw cards. So it's not really a huge card disadvantage, if that makes sense, in a creature token heavy deck.
Yeah, if you have lots of stuff on your own side you want to target with this, then it can be a kind of a slow card drawing engine. Um, can also just be a decent tempo card. Like if you can hit something big and yeah, they draw 2 cards, but if you're kind of Borosing them out, maybe those cards don't matter.
Yeah, but 4 mana for that doesn't seem great.
I would agree, except it's not really 4 mana, right? It's like, do you have 2 spare mana a couple times? Which sometimes you do. Yeah, you don't have it on turn 4, but maybe this just helps you get through those last points by getting rid of their big blocker on turn 6. I
I
don't love it.
I don't think I would ever use it as that.
Well, I think those decks will tend to also have the little things that you don't mind exiling. So I think it can
Maybe.
go in that deck because it can play both roles.
Yeah. If you have tokens, like specifically, like if there are mites and stuff in the set we haven't seen yet, but in the usual Boros, I'm not super excited to sacrifice those things. To me that's a little bit more like Golgari or Rakdos. My Boros creatures tend to be a little bit more valuable than sacrificing, but I think that this is an okay card. It's pretty underwhelming for a rare, and I don't think it's going to belong in every deck. In fact, the average deck I think will not want it. So it's pretty close to a split. It's instant speed, so it's good against removal, which is kind of cool. I'm gonna say that
Good
this,
against we haven't seen yet, but it's good against any sort of lockdown enchantments.
yeah, same removal.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna say it is a split card. It's playable in anything, but I'm not happy about it. I'm gonna say this is like a 4 or a 7.
Yeah, I don't see it ever getting that high. Now maybe we get through the rest of the set and there is enough chaff to sacrifice, even random tokens, treasures, food, stuff like that. But I think I just have this as like just a 3.
Oh,
I'm
wow,
probably
very
never
low.
playing this card.
Okay, interesting.
I, Again, that might be my bias. I don't tend to play the type of decks that have those things to sacrifice.
Yeah, it
I
is.
don't like giving my opponent extra cards.
I play a lot of like Golgari and like I said, like mites and saprolings. Like I tend to sort of gravitate towards those types of things, like slow, grindy, like blood artist decks. Like this seems sweet for those kinds of things. Even decks that just have a fair number of creatures that are more like mid-rangey, I think this could be really cool. And then board stalls, it removes bombs when it needs to. So I feel like it's always going to be pretty borderline playable for me. So this will be one of the probably one of our biggest disagreements. Don't get me wrong, I still don't love it. Like four/7 in the perfect condition is still not great.
Sure.
Charitable Levy, 2 mana for an enchantment. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. Interesting. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, put a collection counter onto this. Then, if there are 3 or more counters on it, sacrifice it. If you do, draw a card. Then you may search your library for a plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. Okay, so you do this in your Boros creature deck. Makes your opponents have less that they can do, and then at the end it replaces itself and gets you a land, ramps you, thins you. At that point, if you're creature heavy, like Selesnya probably wants more land at this point. Seems fine.
Yeah, I think this is just like the Thalia effect without the fact that you're getting a 2/1 first striker,
Yeah,
which I'd rather have than the delayed replacement card plus the planes.
absolutely, I agree.
Um,
This seems my ratings. You'll have to forgive at least me. My ratings are not quite cemented yet as to like what
oh
my
no, new
range will
scale.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is a new scale, and I'm just kind of feeling it out. By the time we get to the next color or two, I should be a little bit more cemented. But I'm gonna say this is a 4. Like it will maybe make the cut in some decks that are super creature heavy, like 18 plus. But other than that, I don't think I'm playing this card.
yeah, I like this a little bit more than the last card, just because it does eventually replace itself. So if you had to put it as filler, as long as you're not the spells heavy deck, then I think you're fine.
Yeah. All right. Dog Umbra. 2 mana for an enchant aura with flash. Enchant creature says, as long as another player controls an enchant creature, it can't attack or block. Otherwise, Dog Umbra has Umbra armor. Okay. I was like, wait, that didn't click in my, it felt like it was missing a few words. I thought I misread something.
I did a double take the first time I read this card too,
Yeah.
partly because we mentioned this briefly in the intro, but for anyone that doesn't know, Umbra armor is what used to be Totem armor. It's the same mechanic; they just changed the name on it.
Which is, if it were to be
Basically,
destroyed, you destroy the aura instead.
yeah.
So
Uh,
I like that it's a doge.
I actually really like this card. Right? It's a flash pacifism that also protects your own things in a pinch.
Yeah, you can flash it in response to big removal, which is cool. And then also on their end, they play a big hasty thing, right? And you just flash this onto it before combat. I think this card is pretty fantastic removal. What is our new premium removal that used to be 4? Is it
Yeah,
8?
I think it's 8.
Is it
I think
8?
that still leaves 2 levels of room above it for bombs.
Yeah.
Um,
I like
so yeah,
8.
I think it's 8. Yeah, so
Okay.
that 2 mana, cheap, just a better
Flash.
pacifism.
Seems good. It's two-sided, which is really cool. You don't see stuff like that very often.
Sure.
Envoy of the Ancestors, 3 mana for a 2/3 with Outlast. I love that mechanic from Khans of Tarkir, or whatever the
Yep.
block
Concept art here.
was. Modified creatures you control have lifelink, and it modifies itself for 1 mana. So this becomes, for 4 mana, essentially, a 3/4 lifelinker that also will help modify or boost your other creatures that can do things like this. And based on the bird we saw, that can help modify at common. So it doesn't, I don't think there's going to be a hard time triggering this. Seems like a great sort of signpost common for this particular color. I like this card a lot. I love life gain decks as well. So, and I love Outlast, so I might be a little biased.
It's a nice twist that since Cons of Tarkir came out, they've added this concept of modified creatures. Back in Cons, all these Outlast creatures work together, but only specified for creatures with +1/+1 counters on them.
Yes.
Now it also includes equipment, auras, other types of counters. Like we saw Vigilance counter already. That would count as well.
Power creep. It's real.
Yeah. Which I think helps Outlast. The Outlast was always really slow, which was always tough because you can only do it at sorcery speed. So I think just anything that broadens the range of things that can help with, I think is nice.
I like this card a lot. Outlast cards have been really good for me in the past. They've broken stalemates a lot. They become really difficult to deal with. And sometimes just playing this pre-combat and giving your creatures lifelink and trample and like whatever, it can drastically change the game state the turn it comes down, even if you can't outlast it, because it's sort of lording up all your other things. So I think this card is very good, even if the synergy is pretty minor, because it triggers on itself and it gets bigger and scarier. So I'm here for this card. 6.5 for me.
Oh, we still get to do half points
Yeah.
in the 10-point scale. Ooh,
Why not?
that's a change it. Yeah,
Because it's
why
not
not,
a 6, but it's not quite a 7. Maybe it's a 7.
I think I have it as a 7. Maybe that's just a little bit from cheating from the intro where we saw a lot of this modified synergy and kind of the Abzan space. That I think this is gonna be pretty good.
I think this is the point where like the bird was a low 3 and this is like the high 3, right? Like, so this is good that we are splitting up this scale. I can give this a 7. The reason I was hesitant to is because premium removal at an 8 is, it's a little close for me for that, but I'll get on board. I'll call it a 7. I'm high on this card, so.
Yeah, I like this card. Abzan Battle Guide was such a beating in Cons, and even when they brought it back in Iconic Masters.
All right, Essence Reliquary, 3 mana for an artifact. You can tap it, return another target permanent you control, and all auras you control attached to it to their owner's hand activate only during your turn. So this is like ETB. It's not really protection from removal because it's sorcery speed-ish. Like, you can do it like during your combat, but you probably don't want to. Maybe in response to like removal on your turn.
Yeah, I don't.
It's really ETB effects, right? I just don't know why they're including the aura thing. There might be auras that come into play and draw you a land with the ETB. That's pretty common. There's like the dwarf that draws you a life and draws you a card and gains a life, and there's an angel from Capenna. Like creatures that do that, and then there's also cards from other sets that do like draw 2 mana, +1/+1 and trample and draw a card when ETBs, whatever, like something similar to that. So if there are auras that have ETB triggers along with like some tasty little creatures, then sure. But other than that, I don't know.
The only thing I can really think of besides what you just mentioned on the aura side is if with the kind of modified theme, if there's a decent number of auras, they may just not want this to have the downside of you losing all those other cards by returning things to your hand.
Yeah, or like the bird, the support bird we just saw in the beginning, or cards like Chupacabra.
Yeah.
But that's ETB, we covered that. So overall, I don't think this is going to be good in the average deck. I'm going to give it a 3.
Yeah, if you have the, kind of incredibly large number of ETBs, then sure. I guess this is kind of a niche case, but I guess with the evoke elementals that are in special guest, you can evoke them and return them to your hand before they die.
Mm-hmm.
So you can re-trigger those pretty easily because you can do it at instant speed during your turn. So like a Solitude or something, you could have some fun with this card. But yeah, I like it as like a 3/2.
I'm sure there's a perfect deck for this.
Yeah.
Expel the Unworthy, 2 mana for a kicker 3. Choose target creature with mana value 3 or less. If this was kicked, instead choose target creature. Exile the chosen creature. Then its controller gains life equal to its mana value. Yeah, I like it. 2 mana for 3 mana or less, and 5 mana for any creature for exile sorcery speed. That's actually pretty average, except for the fact that it has 2 white pips. It's a little more expensive than we typically see. But you have the flexibility of casting it for 2 when you want to.
What is going on in the art here? Is that... I'm trying to figure this out, because my first thought that it was like looking kind of like a farm. Person was farming and thought this was like an art reference to Swords to Plowshares, but
I think it does look like wheat, and they're like,
yeah,
I don't know.
It's the same effect. It just shows you how busted Swords is when that is 1 mana instant speed, and this is 5 mana sorcery speed for the same effect.
Yeah, pretty much. The difference is that it gives mana based on power versus mana cost.
True.
Which is a little different.
Yep.
I agree. This is significantly worse. Rating wise, I think this is pretty good. The fact that it's a sorcery makes me give it a 7.
Yeah, it's definitely worse than the Flash Pacifism, which we said was an 8. So yeah, I like it at 7.
A Flare of Fortitude. 4 mana for an instant. You may sacrifice a non-token white creature rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Until end of turn, your life total can't change, and permanents you control gain hexproof till end of turn. So we're getting another Teferi's protection? Ish?
Yeah, so this is this Modern Horizons set the cycle of free spells. You had the Force Negation cycle in Modern Horizons 1, you had the Evoke Elementals in 2, and now instead of pitching a card from your hand, it's they're all sacrifice a non-token creature of that color. Yeah, I mean, I guess this card can kind of be a major blowout.
Yeah.
In the right setup.
It can be. You have to be like racing for lethal, kind of, and then you bait them into attacking you so that way you have clean swings on the way back. My concern is that a good chunk of the time these are like delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, I'm thinking more on the second portion of the card, just like in a major combat, you turn 3 trades into 3 clean kills because they're indestructible.
Yeah, unlike Teferi's protection, your shit does not phase out, so you can actually just like block everything and eat their stuff. I agree. I think that the life total change is the less exciting thing for limited.
Agreed.
If you're not changing your life total, you're probably still dying if it's going to matter. So I agree. I think hexproof and indestructible is where it's at here. And for your creatures all gain hexproof, it's a little expensive, but because you get both at instant speed, I think that's solid. I was just thinking of the first clause for some reason, and I was thinking it was not very good, but you're right. It's the power's in the butt.
Especially because, like, if you're in a big board, right, and you've got a big attack where that might be relevant, you probably have something to sacrifice, so you can even hold this up with no mana up. Never play around it.
I don't want to do that in limited, please.
Like, no mana rare, like, nobody's ever playing around that.
Ugh. Gross.
I mean, that being said, it's very situational.
Yeah. Still, I think it is very good. I'm going to say it's an 8.
I'm a little lower. I think I've got it as a 7. It certainly has the power level of an 8, but I think it's, unlike some of like our premium removal that we put there, it's just too many times where it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I'm kind of giving like the hexproof. So the reason my justification for an 8 is like sometimes it just wins you the game like a 10, right? And then sometimes it is just bricking a premium removal spell, which is like okay. Or it's like trading for 2 creatures in combat, which is also like net positive. So I kind of averaged those 2 things together to get an 8 because it was like 6, 10 somewhere in there. So not great logic, but that's what I got.
That's good enough.
So you said you're a 7?
Yeah.
All right. Glyph Elemental, 2 mana for a enchant elemental creature with bestow 2 and landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, +1/+1 counter on this. And then also enchant creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on this. So that's pretty cool. The only problem is that when you bestow it, it doesn't actually do anything on its own. Like, it doesn't give any base stat initially, right? It doesn't give it +2/+2 plus the landfall. So that is
You're right. Yeah. Um,
it is weaker on its face. But that kind of makes sense because usually it's a creature that bestows and gives that creature flying. If it bestows, it doesn't give it that plus its stats. So it makes sense. It's just weird that it doesn't get anything
yeah,
like
I
out
guess
of the
the
gate.
balancing act on that is that it gets to keep the counters when it falls off,
Yes.
like when the creature dies.
Yeah.
Um, so that bonus happens in both instances. I mean, obviously, you're what looking for here, right? Is you're looking for a 2-drop into this and then immediately play your third land.
I mean, this seems nuts for a 2-drop.
Yeah,
Just it's just a 2/2 for 2 that just gets bigger all the time. This seems like a 7.
yeah. I think I like it as a 7. It, it's a weird 2-drop in that does have value later in the game, but also you've already played out a lot of your lands probably. So who knows how valuable that is? But at least it's better than just a bear at that point, which is what a lot of 2/2s will be late.
I feel like I'm a little edged too high. I'm gonna change my answer. I'm gonna say it's a 6. I think I'm edging too high on the top of the scale for our playable cards because I was thinking it's like 5 to 7 is like kind of our 3-ish range. So I think
Yeah, I also think we're also going to be dealing with a high power level set here, which also might skew our stuff up.
yeah, it's gonna take us a little bit to get locked in on
Get this, get this dialed in.
our
Yeah.
vibes. Yeah, Guardian of the Forgotten, 4 mana for an Elephant Warrior with Vigilance. Whenever a modified creature you control dies, manifest the top card of your library. It's 4/4/4 in white. Wow, with Vigilance. Wow, with a keyword. Oh my goodness, this does everything. Even if you don't
Yeah.
have any modification, this is a solid creature.
Yeah, certainly nothing wrong with the body here. This is one of 2 manifest cards in the set. Manifest that we first saw in Fate Reforged, and we've seen some version of that. We just saw, what was the version that we just saw in MKM?
Mm-hmm.
Not Disguise, but the other one,
Yeah,
Cloak. Yeah,
yeah,
I couldn't remember the name of
that's it.
it. um,
I can't remember the name of anything, so you're asking the wrong person. Um, and we're not doing these live, so we can't ask chat, which is also difficult.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, I
but
think
no,
this card
def-
is good. I think the modified creature is built, from what I'm seeing in white, it is built in enough to where I feel like any deck will have some synergy with this. So I think this is on the high of my 3 scale. I'm going to give this is something I would be excited to play in my deck, I think. So I'm going to give this a. God, I still want to give it a 7. Stop. Why is everything a 7? But that 7 is too good. I'm going to say it's a 6.
yeah, I was kind of in the same ballpark. I was thinking it's 7, but I think for the context of this set, this might be a 7 in
In regular sets.
MKM or OTJ or any of the recent sets. But when you're dealing with the Modern Horizon set, things are just going to be stronger.
I feel like I need to
So I
shift
like it as a
everything
6.
down. I was thinking my like barely playable is 5. I think my barely playable needs to go to like 4. I'm going to shift it down even further. All right, Guide of Souls, 1 mana for a human cleric. It's a 2/1 that whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and 1 energy. And then whenever you attack, you may pay 3 energy. When you do, put 2 +1/+1 counters and a flying counter on target attacking creature. It becomes an angel in addition to its other types. Holy smokes! That's a lot of things to put onto a creature that's attacking. And you can trigger this by just playing 3 creatures, and then you attack with something, and then it leaps. It mighty leaps itself permanently. Oh my god, that's so insane. This card's fantastic.
Yeah. Soul Warden just keeps getting stronger.
If left to do its thing, this will win you the game. For me, that was the same as my premium removal. It's like small, so it dies to a shock, right? So you can't give it a 10. So this is an 8 for me.
Think I'm going to be a little lower at like 7.5. I agree. It can win you the game, but it can't do it on its own.
Yeah, you
Like you
gotta have
need to be doing
bodies.
other things. Like you can't just some of those other ones you could play on an empty board on turn 8, and
Cards
if
that
they're
like
left
draw
alone,
you over turns.
they'll win
Yeah.
the game. This one you do need a little bit of help. Not a lot, especially if you can get it on the board early,
Yeah.
but some help.
All right. Hex Gold Slith?
Yep.
Sure. At first, I wanted to say Sith, and I was like, that can't be right. That would be not allowed at all. 2 mana for a 2/1, not a Sith. And it says, when it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. And whenever it attacks, you can pay 2 energy, and it gains a first strike till end of turn. When it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. I like that for 2 mana. This is, I fixed my rating. I believe this is my 5 spot.
Yeah, that's kind of where I like it. You're fine playing this deck if you got a lot of energy.
It's kind of a guaranteed like 3/2 for 2, because if you think about it, like it comes into play with the energy, and then you give it first strike, they're probably not going to want to block, or they eat it like early game, and then you just get that free counter.
Yeah, I think as long as we don't see a significant number of like 1/3s
Yeah.
in the set, 2 mana 1/3s, I think you're right. I think this is on curve is basically a 3/2.
You like it at 5?
I like it at 5 as well. Yeah.
Indebted Spirit, 1 mana for an enchant creature spirit, bestow 3, has afterlife 1. Afterlife is an old school mechanic we saw in the one with the little arch.
Yeah, I will never ever remember which is Guilds of Ravnica and which is Ravnica Allegiance. It's one of those two.
Whenever a permanent is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying whenever this permanent. And it also, the enchant creature gets +1/+1 and has afterlife 1. So you can get that afterlife trigger twice if you put it onto something, which is kind of cool. I think this is fine. It's going to modify your creatures. It's going to give you value. I like value. It's my favorite thing in the whole wide world. So I'm going to say this is... It's a 5. I like it more-ish, but it's not that powerful. So it's just a 5 for me.
Yeah, I think if there's a lot of value in your deck for getting multiple tokens, or if you're playing a modified deck, then this is going to get a boost. But in general, yeah, it's a cheap card. It lets you put a 1-drop in your deck without only having a low impact 1-drop, because you can use it.
I'm seeing a lot of enchantments. I'm wondering if there's going to be an enchantment sub-theme somewhere.
Yeah, possibly.
All right. Inspired Inventor, 3 mana for a 2/2 human artificer. When it enters the battlefield, you get to choose 1, get 3 energy, put a counter on target creature, or create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. Very flexible. I think that this is worth it. It's a 3/3 for 3 at its worst. If you don't want these other things, right? If you don't have benefits for going wide or for energy, which, depending on your color pairing, energy might be amazing. And I think the flexibility on this is pretty nice. This also strikes me as a 5, because it's got so many options that every deck will want it for one of the options. I think it's fine. And also, it's not just a 3/3 for 3. It's also modified on its base.
It's funny. This card just reminds me a lot of from Fate Reforged, Sandstep Outcast, which was 2 and a white for a 2/1 that you either got to put a counter on it or make a 1/1 flyer, and you didn't have a third option, and that was like the runaway best white common in the set. And here this is just good. Like it's almost certainly not going to be the best common in the set. Yeah, flexibility is great. If we can find good value we already know there's modified value and energy value in this set. If there's good value in having extra tokens, even if, which there usually is somewhere, then this card is great.
What's your rating, though?
I think I've got it a 6.
A little higher than me. Jolted Awake, 1 mana for a sorcery. Choose up to 1 target artifact or creature card in your graveyard. You may pay... You get 2 energy. Then you may pay an amount of energy equal to that card's mana value. If you do, return it from the graveyard to the battlefield, and this has cycling. So the average deck not going to want this. Only an energy deck. Because it lets you get a 2 CMC card back, which is not good enough in any deck on its own unless you have some other synergy here. It does cycle, which is cool, but I'm going to say the average deck, no thank you. Split rating.
Yeah, the average deck doesn't want this at all. The energy deck really wants this, because you could be spending 1 mana to get back a 6-drop, and if you don't have the energy for it, you just cycle it away.
And so for me, this is not even sideboardable. So the split rating would be like a
Agreed.
1. I think I'm going to do sideboards as like 2, 3, 4s, kind of, if that makes sense. Like the
Sure,
more,
yeah.
basically my scale of 10 is going to be how much I want to draft this card. So like sideboard cards are important. So like you're picking those up still when you can at 3s and 4s. But anyway, so it's a split rating between a 1 and a 5 in the right deck.
I think I'm like slightly up on both ends. I think I was like as a 2/6.
Fair.
It's just hard for me to give completely unplayable rating to something that can cycle if you desperately needed that last card.
Yeah. Is this one of those teeth monsters? It is.
Yep.
Mandible?
I think it's mandibular.
Mandibular. Thank you. Mandibular kite. That's gross. 1 mana for an artifact equipment, living weapon. Comes into play with a 0/0 black Phyrexian germ, and it automatically equips. It gets +1/+1 in flying. So this is a 1 mana, 1/1 flyer that that also then you can just keep a +1/+1 flying equip even if it's just for 4. I'm into this. I'm so into this. 6.
Yeah, all equipment that give flying to me always seem to overperform.
All hail Bird Jesus. He lives on. He
I
actually,
don't
he's resurrected.
as a chirp.
As a what?
As a chirp.
A germ. No, the
it's a
germ
germ
dies,
token.
and then he's resurrected into whatever the other creature is.
Okay. Um, I really dislike the 4 equip, but
It doesn't
I think
matter
I'll still
because it
find-
comes with a 1/1 for 1. So the equip is just free. Like that's just free value.
Yeah, but I wouldn't play the 1/1 for 1.
That's because you stink. I will play a 1/1 for 1. That flies.
I think this card is good because flying equipment always overperform.
6 in the average deck.
Yeah, I think I've got it as a 5.
It'll play better in all my decks because my decks have a lot of creatures.
Sure.
Metastatic Evangel. 2 mana for a 3/1 Phyrexian Human Cleric. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, proliferate. Proliferate! Let's go! And this is like a +1/+1 counter heavy set. I love proliferate. And whenever another non-token creature is not going to be hard for this, this card's freaking great. Even in a deck that is not like built for this, you'll still get some triggers.
Yeah. It's not a lot to say about this card. I got it at like a 6. It's fine. It's probably on the lower end of what the payoffs I think are, probably because it's only counters, and most of this seems to be more of a broader modified theme. But if you're specifically in counter heavy version, it'll be pretty good.
Yeah, I think there's the certain color pairings had different focuses on modified from what I could tell. I think this is high for me. I think it is a 6, but I think it can perform very well in the deck that's built for it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. Muster the Departed. We're about to get Lord of the Rings in this bitch. 3 mana for an enchantment that says, when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, and it has Morbid. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, populate. I love it.
So we got a double here. I believe this is the only card in the set with Morbid and the only card in the set with Populate.
I love it. This card seems so cool. I mean, it's a little expensive for a 1/1, but like over time, you just get this incremental value every single time anything else dies. And if you have better tokens, even better. It's not going to be good for the average deck. If you're playing like Azorius Control and you're playing like 10 creatures or something, don't look at this. But if you're playing like Boros, if you're playing like Selesnya dudes, this is going to be sweet.
Yeah, I want to be fairly confident I'm going to have a good chance of having at least another token out when I play this. Because otherwise they just kill your 1/1 and then this doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
I
think you're right. You have to have a few, but
yeah.
Or you just make sure you play it on a turn post combat after they've traded something. I'm pretty much assuming that, like, if you're playing this, you're doing it and you're getting 2 of the 1/1s. You don't have to, of course, if you want to curve out nice and clean. But I feel like if you're doing that, you do need to have, like, other things as well to make sure you're populating. Rating wise, I think it's kind of a split, which is weird. I'm not going to give it a split. I'm just going to give it a 5 for the average performance.
Yeah, I'm with you there. You don't have to have a heavy token deck to play this card, but it's only going to be good if you do.
And you also just need to have a heavy creature deck also. But that's
True, you
also
need
like,
both.
that's when it's a good deck, a good fit for it, but not an overperforming fit for it.
Yep.
Nyxborn Unicorn. That unicorn needs a hamburger. 2 mana for a 2/2 unicorn with bestow 4. It's got mentor. Enchant creature also gets +2/+2 and has mentor, which is really cool. Whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on another attacking creature with power less than it. So I like the bestow here more because a 2/2 is not great unless you're adding to that. But this kind of works really well if you're bestowing it onto like a 4/4.
Yeah, or just even if you're bestowing it on, just bestowing it in general, you're probably going to at least get a counter if you put it on a 2/2. You now have a 4/4.
Yeah.
So, you're probably at least going to get a counter, if not more.
I read the +2/+2, but in my head, because the last one didn't give its
Yep.
stats, I just kind of wrote that off as it would now be a 4/4 on a 4/4. But yeah, you're right. It is even just better. Bestowing it on any creature makes that mentor trigger a little bit more. Now, I would just play this on turn 2 if I had any of those put a +1/+1 counter on creatures when they ETB, if I have any of those sort of support or whatever that other little dwarfy guy was.
Yep.
I don't remember what he looked like. Little human artificer. He was an
Yeah.
artificer because he made a servo.
Yeah, the 3 mana to do the inspired inventor.
Yeah. Was he a dwarf?
He was a human artificer, but he does kind of look like, I'm looking at it right now, he does kind of look like a dwarf.
Yeah, that's what I kind of remembered. So I would play this no matter what. I think this card is good. I like it a lot in Boros or even in like Selesnya dudes. Sometimes like Selesnya servos is a thing. I'm sorry, Azorius, not Selesnya. Azorius servos, Orthopter type deals. Those are fun archetypes. Rating wise, this is a strong 2-drop. It's gonna pull some pretty heavy punches for a 2-drop.
I'm generally pretty high on the bestow cards. I remember bestow cards being pretty good in Theros block. Now again, we're talking about a higher power set here, but it's so frustrating to play against because you deal with the creature that they're on, and then they just fall off, and they're another creature you have to deal with.
I mean, they are 2 full cards though, so it is 2
True.
for 2.
Oh, it's not card disadvantage. It feels bad because
Yeah.
they're getting the second creature without spending any more. I know they did in the past. It just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't feel good to play against.
Yeah, but this unicorn does need a hamburger.
Yes.
6.5 is my rating.
I think I like it as a 7,
All right.
but I'm right around there with you.
Ocelot Pride. 1 mana for a 1/1 cat with first strike and lifelink and ascend. If you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. At the beginning of your end step, if you've gained life this turn, create a 1/1 cat creature token. Then, if you have the city's blessing for each token you control that enter the battlefield this turn, create a token that is a copy of it. Oh, that's really cool with other tokens, like our spirity guy, right? Like, okay.
Yep.
This is a mythic, but it is a cool card. It's very, very synergy specific. I love the fact that you play this late. You just have the city's blessing due to like lands. And even if you're like in some sort of board stall, you're just going to get 2 free cats every turn to like go super wide. I think that's nice. And if you're in like Boros and you're ahead, then that's just going to get even crazier. You do have to like gain the life though, so this 1/1 has to try to get in.
Yeah, that's going to be the tricky part here is finding the life gain.
Yeah, and the other card we saw that like when a creature ETBs gain a life was like a rare.
Yep.
So I don't know. Maybe it's not great in a board stall. It's like very good in like Boros. But even then, hopefully they can probably block a 1/1 by the time like you have City's Blessing.
Yeah, I mean, you are in the modified colors, so maybe the idea is you're putting stuff on this to make it bigger and be able to get in. You don't need to do too much to get a first striker in.
I also need to see like what else gains life in this set with any regularity. The other card that's been pretty regular has been a rare. So for now, I'm going to be pretty conservative on this. I'm going to say it's going to be playable in every single white deck that you're not going to cut this. But I'm going to be pretty conservative and say it's just a 6.
Yeah, again, without seeing, like you just mentioned, the regular lifelink or life gain effects, they can't put it too high, so I like it as a 6 as well.
Pearl Ear Imperial Advisor. 3 mana for a 3/4 with lifelink. Alright, that makes our cat better, but it's another rare. Enchantment spells you cost have affinity for auras. That's pretty cool. They'll cost 1 less for each other aura you have. Whenever you cast an aura spell that targets a modified permanent you control, draw a card. Tell me more. This is like everything I want in life. Is I love auras and I love life gain decks and I like foxes with multiple tails. Let's go. Send it. I'm
and
in.
you're drawing cards for value.
I
Like,
love value so much. So much. Yeah, I'm into this. This card is great. I'm going to say it's $1,000,000. The average deck that doesn't have a lot of auras though, it's still a 3 mana 3/4 with lifelink. That is a banger stat line. I'm here for it.
and kind of like the role living weapon plays for equipment, where you get to put extra ones in your deck without decreasing your creature count. That's what Bestow is doing in this set for auras. Right, you get to play extra auras, and there are more of them floating around because of all the Bestow creatures.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Yes, but
saw
and I love
there
modified.
were
I just want
there are
counters. I love counters. I'm gonna say this is an
there
8.
yeah, I think that's where I have it too.
If you don't have an auras deck, sure, it's a 6. Or no, it's like
Yeah,
a 7 because it's a great stat line. But like,
exactly.
I'm
There's
gonna
no downside to this card.
I'm gonna assume you can draw cards sometimes, even if it is not highly synergistic. You will have a few auras, and white will have a few counters always.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even really need the affinity for auras part to do anything
I'm
for this
ignoring
card to
that
be good.
honestly.
Yeah,
Great, it's an 8. It's Hamlet.
it's a
Philia.
10. It's a 10. Move on.
Exuberant Shepherd. It's a 10. Let's just look at his art and love him. Even though Hammy's been barking through this whole episode and I've had to edit out all of those barks. So I am a little angry with him, but we still love him. Oh, he's so cute. We've got a 2/2 for 2, dog with flash. When it attacks, exile up to one other target non-land permanent. At the beginning of your next end step, return that to the battlefield under its owner's control. If it entered the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So you can phase out creatures that block. You can put counters and modify all of your creatures. It's a 2/2 with 2 for flash, and it's a dog, and it's a corgi. It's a 10. Done.
And I feel like Flash is appropriate because I feel like I've seen Hammy run all over the place out of nowhere.
He
So that's kind
runs
of
really
perfect.
fast for being such a short little fat guy.
You know, 2/2 Flash with uh a relevant ETB ability. Great. You can target their stuff. You can uh, exile their tokens. They don't come back. You can do a lot of things with this sort of like flicker wisp type effect.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm gonna give it a high score anyway. I actually think it's very good. Flickering like your own stuff, modifying them, flickering their blockers, a flash blocker, a good solid 2-drop. I think it's an 8.
I think I'm a little lower on it just because it doesn't have the ceiling of some of the other cards, but I still think it's really good. I like a 7.5, not much lower.
Okay, you're allowed to be wrong. Proud Pack Rhino, 3 mana for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you choose one. Put a shield counter on target permanent. You can also proliferate, which is cool. I like this. This is cool. I like both of these abilities. Those are both very strong in the right situations. They're not like the last one that said choose one. Like those were pretty small abilities, but these can be heavy hitting. This card seems great to me. I think it's a 6.
I appreciate giving us something, if you have proliferate as an option, giving us something that obviously works with proliferate, but
Yeah.
also there are just going to be times where you don't have counters, so you still get an effect, which is nice, and a good effect.
And a 3/3
Six
for
as well.
3 in white is not bad.
Yeah.
All right. That's a lot of words. You go.
Rosecott Knight, 4 and a white, 5 mana for a 3/4 vigilant, a human knight with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact or enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you did not put a card into your hand this way, put a +1/+1 counter on this card.
It's a little too expensive for the stat line if you don't have a good chance of getting it. But I guess if you don't have a good chance, it's a 4/5 for 5 with vigilance, which is like still okay. But for a Modern Horizon set, that feels pretty lackluster. So I think the average deck that is not aura based, it's not good enough.
So I think in a lot of sets, I would not like that top 6 ability because you just don't have a lot of artifacts or enchantments. But between Bestow and Living Weapon, you can actually get creatures off of this, which is nice.
Yeah.
Which you normally can't get with that effect. Also, while yes, it'd be a 4/5, it's actually a lot of times going to be better than that because it's a 3/4 with a counter, so it comes in modified in those cases.
Yep, modified is relevant. I'm going to say it's a 5.
Yeah, I think.
And that's me averaging it out because I think in some decks it will be very good, and then in some decks it's like I will play it, but I will be unhappy about it.
I like it as a 5 as well. If you have a decent number of creatures you can hit off that ability, then I'm definitely happy with this card. But
Yeah.
5 mana slot also can get pretty crowded.
It's definitely close to a split rating. Solstice Zealot. Solstice Zealot. 3 mana for a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, get 2 energy. You can also tap it and pay 1 energy to tap a creature. I don't like that you're so limited on this. The average deck I don't think is going to have enough energy. Like, there's another color pairing that will have it, but I'm not seeing that much energy in white for me to be happy about this on its own.
Yeah, this just feels underwhelming.
And
I do like
a 2/3 for 3 is not good enough anymore.
Agreed. I do like that we now have because they haven't been doing this much lately, giving us an option to tap without paying mana. But while you get the benefit of being able to do it while you're tapped out, you also have very limited.
Resource.
It's not a renewable resource like mana is every turn.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this is a 3. I'm not into this.
Yeah, you'll know when you want this if you're in that Azorius energy deck,
One
and
deck.
you kind of just want it mostly for the energy generation, just to get 2 free energy on a card, sure. But otherwise, I'm with you. I think
there will be a deck that can make so much energy where you can have infinite of these type of things and be very happy. But it is just one deck, I think.
Yeah.
So that deck, it will go up. It'll be like a 5 or a 6, and then great. But I think the other, 9+ decks it's not good. Static Prison, 1 mana for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until this leaves. You get 2 energy. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, sacrifice this unless you pay an energy.
Sure, how I feel about this card.
It's very good in a deck.
Yeah.
And I would need a crap ton of energy to feel comfortable putting this in my deck. Or like the world's most aggressive Boros deck.
Because like I'm trying to figure out like how much is getting rid of something for 2 turns worth.
Kind of for 3 turns, right? Because like it's on your upkeep. Oh, your pre-combat main phase. Ooh. No, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. So if you cast this in your main phase, you can still attack them without spending the energy. So this is 3 turns. And for Boros, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen cards that put, multiple stun counters on things, and that's a similar effect. This also just permanently gets rid of tokens.
Yeah. It's definitely playable, but I'm going to say it's a 5.
I think I agree with you. It's not enough because there's only one deck. It's not enough for a split card, but this is at least an 8 in the right deck, if not
Oh,
better, because it's so cheap. But
if you have
there's
rare
only
that
one
gives
deck.
you energy every time a creature comes into play and that kind of stuff,
Sure.
great. This is gonna be a straight bomb for you all day, every day. But yeah, no, not the rest of the decks.
Nope.
All right, Thraben Charm, 2 mana for an instant. Choose one. This deals damage equal to twice the number of creatures you control to any target. That's interesting. Normally, that's to a creature, and it's
It, it
twice.
is it is it is the target creature.
Oh wait, I could have swore I read any target.
Nope.
Oh, why did I read any target? Okay, it's not interesting. I take it back. Destroy target enchantment and exile any number of target players' graveyards. I read it and I was like, that's weird. It shouldn't say that. And then
Yeah,
it's because
White
it
should be
didn't.
able to burn people out with this.
Yeah, I was just like, I just make infinite dudes and like dome you for 20. That's cool. Um, yeah, I like the flexibility on this. Double creatures is pretty rare at instant speed. That's much higher than we typically get. It's usually just equal to creatures. And then you can also exile graveyards is cool. Not super relevant and limited, but sometimes. And destroy an enchantment will be really relevant in this set.
Yeah, in any set, I like the ability to put destroy target enchantment in my deck for free. More so in this set, since we've seen bestow already, and some aura themes.
Because this has removal, I think it's great, and the enchantment side just makes it a bonus. I don't think I will ever cut the first one of these. I'm going to say this is a 6.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. There might be some very low creature count decks
Yeah.
that could cut it, but probably not in white. That's even
And
blue white with energy looks to want creatures.
and there has been ones where it's like, I don't have enough creatures, I don't play them, but this has 2x. Like you really only
Yep,
need like 2 creatures for it to be
true.
very
Yeah,
solid.
yeah. No, there's always the danger in that with that card that if they kill one of your creatures in response, they might kind of fizzle your removal spell. So just be careful when you play that card.
Instant speed, 2 mana. It's fine.
Yeah,
That's reasonable to play around.
agreed.
Volt Storm Angel, 5 mana for a 4/4 angel with flying. When it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 2 energy. When you do, choose one of the following. It gains vigilance and lifelink till end of turn, or other creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. That seems great.
And this is just Storm, right? From the X-Men.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I was like, what card name is Storm? It wouldn't
oh
be
yeah,
white. I was super confused.
yeah,
Um, Even if you can't reoccur the ability, it's still playable.
yeah.
Even if you're
Getting to
just gonna
put
get
that,
one time, one trigger.
yeah, getting to put that again, another like sort of situational effect in that anthem, +1/+1 till end of turn effect in your deck on a card you're probably fine playing anyway is nice.
And you can use
Not
the
having to
anthem the
dedicate a
turn it
full
comes
card.
in.
Yes.
She doesn't need to attack. So I think that's cool. I'm gonna say that this is. I think this can win games. 6.5
Yeah, I think with the way we've seen power creep stats, like 5 mana 4/4 Sarah Angel
is
doesn't
not great.
feel that great, but
Yeah.
it's got enough else going on that you're still playing at least the first one of these.
I think if it had 4, if you could activate exactly twice, I would be a solid 7.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
White Orchid Phantom, 2 mana for a 2/2 with first strike and flying. Yes, please. When it enters the battlefield, destroy up to one target non-basic land. Its controller may search for a basic land card, put that onto the battlefield, tapped and shuffle. Um okay. This seems cool. This seems constructed playable almost.
Yeah, I mean, as the name says, it's a takeoff on Knight of the White Orchid from Shards of
Yeah.
Alara, which
Which is why I thought it
uh,
was going to get a land, but it doesn't.
yes,
It destroys a land and then
it's a,
replaces it.
it's angry. It's a vengeful spirit.
Which is just net neutral. Like it'll fix your mana if you happen to like have double white and not your other color or something, or your third splash color, which is cool. Or you can kill. It has to be a non-basic though, which is probably
Yeah.
your splash land anyway. So I don't like this ability. It's just a 2/2 for first strike for 2. That's kind of hard to cast. which is still
Yeah, no,
fine.
it does get flying, which the old ones did not have.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's the trade-off you're getting there. Does feel more constructed than playable than limited. I mean, certainly playable, but it'll be a bigger star there, I would imagine, if there's the deck for it.
5.
I think I would say 6. I think I'm just happy with the 2 mana 2/2 flying first strike.
I would be over
Double
the moon
white
if it
is
doesn't double white. Like,
double white's not the easiest for sure.
especially because this set did kind of dip into like the 3-color possibility more than the average set. So I'm a little. I think I'm just probably not casting this on 2 very often.
That's fair.
Wing It. Oh, he's beautiful. 2
Some
mana
honor.
for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn. Put a flying counter on it and scry 1. They just kept throwing spaghetti at Leap. They took Leap and they were like, add something to it. No, that's not good enough. Add more. And then put a beautiful otter. Ship it. Yeah, I like this card. I think a Leap is usually borderline playable, but putting a flying counter on something is very playable for me. I'm playing one of these for sure. It's a 5, but I'm over the moon about it.
Yeah. Nothing much else to say. Combat tricks are always, you can only put so many in your deck, but this is a good one.
God, you eat their creature and then your shit gets flying forever. It's probably a 6. I don't even know what I'm talking about. It's good. I like it. Wrath of the Skies. X white, you get X energy. Then you may pay any amount of energy to destroy target artifact, creature, and enchantment with mana value less than or equal to the amount of energy paid. Each artifact and creature. Okay. It's kind of cool. So you can, in your energy deck, you can have a lot of freedom, and if you don't have an energy deck, it's still a good board wipe that's like situational. If you have the biggest stuff on the board, then you can keep some of it maybe. I feel like at 6 mana, I kind of want to kill everything, and you can't do that here. But if you are the person with like the one big thing and you need to kill the Boros, then you're pretty happy.
Yeah, this is a tricky wrath to analyze, because you're right. It's going to be based on how much other energy you have, what sort of flexibility you really have. Like, flexible wraths are great, but is this flexible enough in the way you want it? Like, yeah, I can only kill 2 drops, but that's might not be useful.
I think it's gonna depend on the type of deck. Whereas like the typical 6 mana destroy everything is like a good reset oh shit button. You can play around it in every deck. Whereas this is gonna be significantly better in a Selesnya deck where you're taller and you get to blow out the wider decks. If you're more likely to be the one that is not wide. Because then it doesn't matter if you have any other synergy decks or any other synergy. 6 will just be enough because it'll always, at the very least, be under you if it's relevant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good shout with the Selesnya call, because I was trying to think like, well, white doesn't really want to only kill small things because it probably has the smaller things, but maybe not in that green-white deck.
Yeah, it's gonna depend. And board clears are always play around them. Make sure you're getting your value, getting
Yep.
2 for 3 or whatever or better, because you're always gonna have like one or creature on the board or something, but that you can't avoid.
Sure.
So you just got to make sure you're getting more value. And I think this is just that. It's just a little bit more situational. It'll be better in a good tall deck, and it'll be a little worse in like a Boros deck.
Yeah.
7.
Figure it. Yeah, I usually put like straight rats at like the premium removal level at 8 because they're easy to play around in terms of setting them up. This is a little trickier, so yeah, I like it a little lower at 7.
All right. The Flip a Johnny. This is a 1/2 for 2. Comes into play with an extra 2/1 white cat warrior. And whenever one or more cats you control die, you may exile a Johnny, flip him, transformed, and he turns into the Johnny Avenger. 3 loyalty planeswalker, +1/+1 counter on each cat you control, which may or may not be relevant, right? Your cat that he ETB'd with died, and there wasn't a ton of cats in the set, so but it is +2, which is cool. The 0 is you get to make cats, so you're probably doing this one first. When you do, if You control a red permanent other than a Johnny. He deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to any target. Holy shit, yeah, that's a great option. And then -4, each opponent chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among non-land permanents they control, then sacrifices the rest. So you do get to do this if you just plus once, which is nice. Yeah, make a cat, blow up something, make a cat, blow up something bigger, and then pump them all up. Seems good. And he's a 2-mana double body, 3/3 stats for 2 mana.
Yeah, I like everything about this card.
This is actually one of the more like powerful planeswalkers. We've had some kind of duddy ones the last few
great.
sets.
The 2 bodies, if you can flip it easily enough, you get a really good planeswalker.
10.
I think I'm giving it a 9.
Okay, fair enough.
But it is very good. Maybe I'm just scared of giving out my first 10.
That's true. He does it all for me. He makes me happy. I think he's impactful enough on both sides, and you already got a lot of value there. And then he's very impactful in the end. The 0 is like most likely kill things in your Boros deck. So I mean, pretty happy. Razor Grass Ambush. It's a modal spell, instant speed, 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature for 2. That also is a land. I'm in love with modal spells. They automatically get a bonus point just for being a modal, even if they suck. Even if this was 30,000 mana for the exact same ability, I'd still give it at least a 1. It's also important to note that this can come into play untapped, which only the rare cycle could do before, which is nice. So you're, getting to use the land if you need it, but a lot of times having it come into play tapped wouldn't be a problem either. It's got the removal, and I was going to say one other thing about it that made it amazing. Oh, it's free. It's free. You can just still run 17 lands, include this as one of your lands, and if you draw it late, it's a free spell, and if you draw it early, then it's a land still. Great. I think it's great. It's a 7.
Yeah. Modal lands are great. As long as, you do have to worry a little bit about having too many tapped lands in your deck, but these are uncommons. You're not going to get that many of them. That's a problem. You can pay the life. That is a real cost. Not enough to make me not want to play these ever.
Life is a resource. Witch Enchanter is our next modal land. A 4 mana 2/2.
Which one?
The Witch Enchanter. That enchanter.
Which one?
That one. 4 mana 2/2. Human Warlock. When Witch Enchanter enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. Okay, it's built in, it's free, the stats aren't great, but that's fine. It's red doing green's thing, and it has a land on the backside. I love having lands and built-in removal? 7? I'm never cutting any of these.
Yeah, I think I'd say like a 6/5, just because it is, to me, worse than the last card.
I think it is a little worse,
You're really paying a heavy cost for 4 mana 2/2. You're paying for the modal land and paying for the ability, which is fine. I'm never cutting it, but it is worse than the last card.
With all the bestow creatures in here, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the ability on this card.
Oh, I like having it. I do think you're not getting it. You're getting it in terms of free in terms of cost, but you're paying for it on the mana cost.
All right, now we have what are these? These are not the special guests. These are the bonus sheets.
No, yeah.
I can't keep track of all of it anymore. Angelic Runes, 7 mana for a 5/7 angel with flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 2 target artifacts and/or enchantments, and it also has plane cycling. It's really big. I don't mind 1/7 drop in any deck. Exile up to 2 target artifacts and enchantments, which is great. This is something that's played in Commander all the time. I think this might be down rarity as well. Downshifted in rarity.
Feels like a rare.
Yeah, it does. It's good. It's really expensive, so the removal is so good. Like I said, with all the bestow and everything floating around, the equipments, the auras, I'm into this. I'm gonna say this is probably not getting cut from my top end unless I open something really, really good. 6. It's expensive.
Yeah, I think I'll kick it up a little bit to a 6/5 just because, yeah, it's expensive, but you can also just ditch it to get a land to help you get up to your other expensive spells.
Next up, Decree of Justice, XX2 white white, create X 4/4 angel tokens with flying and discard it with cycling 3 to draw a card. When you cycle this, you may pay X. If you do, make that many 1/1 white soldier tokens instead, which is pretty cool. If you have like 5 mana or something, you can like make 2 1/1s for 5 is like okay if you need it. I think Decree is a good haymakery card. Very expensive, but what is this? 2 4/4 flyers for 8 with some flexibility there.
Yeah, Decree of Justice is, to me, a really cool throwback to Scourge, where it was originally printed. And this card saw a lot of constructed play at the time, particularly because it was uncounterable. The cycling the soldier portion of it, you just cycle it and they can't counter the spell. In terms of limited for this set, it's just a nice flexible card. It's a huge haymaker, like you mentioned, at the top end for make a few angels, but you could also just cycle it, get a new card. If you have some extra mana, get a few tokens, use them as flash blockers. You can do a lot with this card.
It's hard to rate, though, because it is so expensive. But, I mean, it wins games, so it's hard not to give it, like, an 8.
Yeah, I think that's where I have it. It is expensive, right? You are paying for the flexibility, for sure, but it is very powerful.
All right, next up, we have a 2-mana 1/2 human wizard. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under control, gain a life. Hey, there was a card that made me think I wanted this. I don't remember what that card was, but there was something that... Oh, the cat.
The cat.
The mythic cat, that's right. And this is an uncommon for a mythic, which is good. It's not vice versa. 5 mana for a tap. Exile another target creature you control and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Also great. I like flickering. That's really cool. This card is cool. Even if you don't have a lot of life gain triggers or blinks, I think you'll have enough to want this in most decks for it to be cool.
and just every time you exile something, you gain a life when it comes back.
And you can like exile it. It doesn't say it comes back at the end of turn, so you can like attack them and then hold up blocks. So like there's some really cool flexibility here. It's great with racing. It's going to be good with like Azorius flying races. Yeah, I like this card a lot. I think it's like a 6.
Yeah, 5 mana is a little expensive for the ability, but if you're on a creature that you're probably okay playing anyway, if you have any sort of life gain stuff, and the fact that it's repeatable instant speed protects you from removal, this card's certainly playable. I like it around a 6.
All right, next up. Orum's Chant, 1 mana for a kicker 1. Target player can't cast spells this turn. If the spell was kicked, creatures can't attack this turn. Not for me. Doesn't do enough.
This is something you stick on Isochron Scepter, and if you really want to make people not have fun, but not for limited.
Yeah, it's really good in the situation where, like, you have lethal on board. You just need to stop them from getting blockers and doing stuff. But, like, no, a card's not worth that. It's going to be dead too often. So I'm going to say that this is... I don't even think I would want to side this in most of the time. So I'm going to say this is a 1.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
All right. Recruiter of the Guard. 3 mana for a 1/1 mythic human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with toughness 2 or less, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. Toughness 2 or less. I mean, it's pretty pricey. 3 mana for a 1/1, but you're also getting something else with toughness 2, so it's probably pretty small. And then you have to pay for that. You don't get to put it into the battlefield. So I am not about this card.
No, this is a constructed card to play like Legacy Death and Taxes to get things like Palace Jailer or Thalia or stuff like that you get high impact, low drops, which you just don't see enough of in a limited deck.
And if it put it into the battlefield, that'd be different. Like, because then you're like, okay, 3 mana for a card to get 2 cards on the battlefield. That's great. But, like, this seems too slow. I'm sure it's still playable, right? Because you're still getting a card. Boros wants more cards for, like, Trumpet Blasts and stuff like that. But I'm going to say this is, like, a 4.
Yeah, I think I'm a little even lower. I think I've got it as a 3. You could stick in your deck. I'd be very unhappy to play this card.
Yeah, you don't play creatures, though. I play creatures, so.
Fair.
All right, Savine's Reclamation. I like this card a lot in like Commander. 3 mana. Return target card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If it was cast from the graveyard with flashback, you can do that twice. So it's good value. So for 1 card, you get 3 things back over time. The value of this is going to depend how good are your 3-drops and less, right? Like, do you have really good ones? Sure. This would be a card that would make me want to play that last card. Be kind of cool because you can like get a card out of your grave or get a card out of your deck. It dies, play it, get it back, get it again kind of thing. So this card I think is always playable. I think it's like a 5 in the average deck.
Yeah, you definitely need some high impact cards, and high impact low drops are probably going to be at rare or mythic. For example, like all 5 planeswalkers, the flip cards, they're all 3 or less on the front side, so you get stuff like that in your deck, sure. But you have to have that critical mass. So I think I've got it as a 4. It's pretty deck specific.
Yeah. All right, next up, Solitude. A reprint here is nice. This is an expensive card. 5 mana for a 3/2 flash and lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 other creature. That creature's controller gains life equal to its power, and you can also evoke it. Exile a white card from your hand.
If I have cards like this, I'll play Recruiter of the Guard.
I mean, this is just removal on a stick.
Yeah, at instant speed and potentially for free if you can afford the card disadvantage or you really need to for whatever reason.
This is an 8.5? 8?
Think I've got it. I think I'd say 8/5.
Okay, we're right on target. All right, next, yep. I think this is the last card, Prismatic Ending. Yep. X and a white for Converge. Exile target non-land permanent if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of colors spent to cast this spell. So it's just 2 mana. Okay, so if it's 2 mana for a 2, 3 for a 3 if you have the colors. Sorcery speed. I feel like most deck... It's hard to say how many decks are going to be 3 colors. I think it will be higher than the average set, but it's not a 3-color set.
Yeah, that's the impression I'm getting as well. And if you can reliably get those 3 colors, this card's pretty good. But if you're only hitting 2, I'm not really happy with this.
I think I would want to be reliably 3 colors for this deck. Because 3 mana for 3, and it's an exile. I'm going to say it's a 3.
Yeah, I think that's probably right in the average deck. Maybe if we get into the set and see it's more 3-color than we think, it goes up. But at this point, I'm with you.
Because even then, you have to spend 3 different colors to basically get the same thing black is doing at common most of the time. It's exiling it instead of destroying it, but like still similar. And
it's non-land permanent, not creature.
Yeah, but most of the non-land permanents that are a problem are usually higher. And,
Sure.
Maybe like the lockdown auras or something you can hit, which is nice, but you're not killing planeswalkers and like big problems.
No, in this set you are, because all the planeswalkers are cheap. Because they're all the front side 1 or 2 mana.
That's true.
But again,
You're right.
you're talking about a special guest card hitting a mythic, so that's not a scenario that's going to come up very often.
Yeah, that's true. But it'll happen enough because there's 5 of them. So, but either way, I don't like this card. I think it's a 3.
Yeah, I'm with you on 3.
And that is it. That is the end of White. This was an incredibly long set review. Chat, let us know in the comments down below. Let us know what you think. It took us a little while to work out our ratings, but I think we're smooth sailing from here. Let me know what you guys think of the set so far and White as a whole. Yanks, what do you think? You liking White or no?
Yeah, I like the modified stuff. I do feel like this set's a little all over the place, but I think that's what we're going to see in the Modern Horizon set with 74 mechanics. That's going to be what they're all going to look like.
I am excited. I like +1/+1 counters. I like life gain. I like go wide strategies. I like what I'm seeing with like the Ajani and the modal lands were all pretty cool. So far, White is showing me everything that I like to do when I play Magic. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave us that comment, and don't forget to check out the sponsor of the show, which is CoolStuffInc. You guys can get an exclusive Nerd Girl and Hammy token that you saw earlier in the show. So make sure you guys check that out and get your discount 5% off when you use code MNG5. We'll see you guys next time for our blue set review. Bye.